Okay, so at the beginning of the project, we conducted a survey of teachers in the region. We created a list of almost 3,000 teachers across the region and came up with some questions we'd like to ask, primarily dealing about what kind of interaction they would like with us, which was kind of key in order to get teachers to do anything. You got to find the most willing, and then they convince other teachers. And so that was the premise that we started with, education being a key component along with outreach, and it really provides a venue for your science to kind of get a life of its own, to have some longevity. Once children see it and interact with it, hopefully it will live forever. Just an example, last summer Vaughn gave it a thing with a petri dish and milk, and I have no idea what it was about, but I know that milk causes light to diffuse and that the black dye did not, but they both blacked out the circle. I know it has some important concept, but I remember his demonstration because it was kind of a cool demonstration. So anyway, so we're looking at teacher perceptions and comfort with the climate topics, agricultural topics, and kind of there is no baseline out there for how teachers outside of the field of science feel about climate change education and teaching it in their classrooms. It was just non-existent. So we got responses back from 800 teachers across the region. They were distributed across all 3 states, not as evenly as we had hoped, but we did have a fairly good distribution throughout the disciplines, even though we didn't have a good regional distribution. So now we do have data on teachers, not just science teachers, but all teachers across disciplines. First, or one of the key things we asked them was how comfortable they felt they were with incorporating climate topics into their classrooms. And interestingly enough, the FCS, Family and Consumer Science teachers, were the least comfortable, and several of them made comments that they really didn't know how to incorporate climate topics in their foods classes, which I thought was kind of ironic. But anyway, so Family and Consumer Science teachers were the holdouts here more than anybody else. And then you can see that science teachers, by and large, were very much in favor. And so at the bottom, ag science and technology teachers were almost identical in their numbers as well. So next, we asked if basic knowledge of climate change integration or climate change topics were important to make socially responsible decisions. And once again, science teachers, ag teachers were out the furthest, most in favor of it. Language arts teachers were very close behind, and the holdouts this time were business teachers. And there were 2 business teachers that were very, very vocal about it not being important. There were a couple science teachers who were very vocal. There's only a couple there on the science row that are disagreeing, but they were very, very disagreeable. In fact, their comments basically said we were idiots for asking these questions because it wasn't real science. Anyway, so one of the key things that we asked them, how comfortable are they, or how able are they to integrate climate change? And they all responded favorably. And then when we were doing some further research, we found that this doesn't mean they actually know anything about climate science, because they've done several surveys with science teachers who said they were very, very comfortable integrating topics, and then they didn't get any of the test questions right about climate science. So just because they're comfortable with it doesn't mean they necessarily have the correct information or they're relaying that to their students. And once again, business teachers very much against integrating it at all. So we ask, would climate change issues and ag topics enhance their curriculum? Obviously, ag teachers, science teachers, this was right down their alley. Math teachers were very much in favor of this. And there are quite a few math teachers who made comments along the lines that they wish they had ways they could integrate it, but they just didn't know where they were, and there wasn't room in the curriculum to be able to do that. So there are quite a few different groups of teachers that are willing to take ag-based climate change information and put it into their classrooms. They feel it will help, but they need a lot of help to get there. Once again, business teachers We just don't talk about them. So then the next thing we asked was, well, how often do you incorporate climate change into your classroom? And unfortunately, the most common was 2 to 3 times a year. And we didn't ask for any specific amount of time, but it means in 2 or 3 classes a year it was brought up, which is somewhat discouraging. It's even more discouraging if you look at the, what is it, that is purple periwinkle there at the end, that's the never. And there is a fairly substantial portion of every discipline except for science that does not include any climate change issues at all in their classrooms. So what are we trying to do? We want to create a curriculum that is interactive, that has lots of fun activities that teach scientific concepts, and hopefully they'll get reinforced better by teachers than I remember from Vaughn's presentation, but the same sort of activities, presentations that are going to stick with kids, that are going to make your science real to them. We hope in the next year and a half to have an actual piloted, approved curriculum that will go out across Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. We hope that it's primarily accepted by ag teachers and science teachers, but we also will have units for social studies and some of the other topics. And we'll do a follow-up study once the curriculum's out to find out how effective it is, and we're going to be planning workshops every summer to help teachers both understand the science and implement the curriculum and the stuff that we come up with. So, thank you.